So Labor Day weekend at Liberty means everybody's gone, man. There was I think, boy, some years you get not a lot of travel. This year we had a lot of travel. There were a lot of people out of town. Any interesting weekend? I went to our boat, and the battery was dead as a wedge. So that was a lot of fun. That was kind of our Labor Day.
Did it die on the water?
No, thank goodness.
Oh.
Yeah, it was dead as a wedge in the dock. Yeah, so I don't know. So, but anybody else? Any fun over the weekend?
Yeah, so I went rafting for the first time, and so we went to the Ocoee River, and we made the track up, and they told us that the first rapid we would see was Grumpy, and not to be alarmed. And
encouraging.
So it's like, okay, yeah. So that's really encouraging, Grumpy. But we got up there, and it was just so. The guide told us, hey, if you follow my commands, we'll end up good. And so he told us what to do, and some of the boats didn't end up so well. We had one that ended up on the rocks, and somebody was in the water and had to rescue him. But, man, there was one time we went down a raft, and I came back up the other side, and it flung me way up in the air.
Were you riding the bull? Is that what?
I was in the front of the boat. No, it was a bull, all right.
No, but like you were sitting and holding the rope in between, and like, did they say you were riding the bull?
No.
Okay.
No. It was close to the end where there's a massive dip in the rapid, and so when we went down, and I came up the other side,
I would like to see a picture of that.
Yes.
I want to see a picture of everybody normally, like in the raft with their oars, and then you about 7 feet above going.
Yeah, everybody behind me was like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah.
But
that would have been the picture I would have bought, because there's
Yes.
never pictures
for
as you
sure.
go.
But when I landed, I ended up back in the middle of the boat, and I couldn't get up. And Stephanie's looking at me like, "Oh my god, he's gonna die."
It's going down, man.
Glad you made
We had
it.
a group from the church a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, we
you
went
were
a couple
part of.
weeks
Yeah.
ago. Speaking of not following commands, okay, so I had the Cochrans in my boat, Jenny Hendricks, Devin, and Peyton Smith, and golly gee. Anyway, we had a full boat, and we were so excited about watching another group behind us on this rapid that we went down first, and then we all just turned around and picked our oars up out of the boat, and our guide is going, "You have to paddle," because we didn't know there was another rapid coming. We were like, whatever, dude. We wanted to see Courtney Williams fall out of the boat behind us because she was in the very front, and no sooner we had a rock slice our boat in half, and we wrapped and started taking on water. Yep. And so they had to like send in another raft to get us, and then Titanic style jump out of our raft into another raft, get our boat out of the water. It took about 7 of their instructors to get us out. And the rest of the boats just had to wait for us and watch this all happening. And we didn't stop paddling after that. It was awful. It was awful. No, it was so fun though. It was so fun. But
y'all were the group that after it's over, the guide goes back to all his buddies, like they're talking about the day, and he's
so
like,
bad.
I had that group.
Yeah.
The next training session is like, hey, don't do what this group did.
Well, what was really interesting is that every time that we stopped, we heard about that group.
Oh, there you go.
So
it was us. Well, we had made fun of a group before us because the first rapid that you were talking about, they got stuck, and we're like, "Oh gosh, we're having to sit here for 30 minutes."
Pride comes before the fall.
And then it was us, and we're like, "Sorry, dude. Sorry." So anyway, but after that, our guide kept trying to get us out of the boat because he was just like, "Well, if you're not going to pay attention," he knew all the spots to like where you would get stuck or where something. And so after that, he was just messing with us. But it's fun if you've never been rafting. The Ocoee is awesome.
So when I was growing up, I was a Boy Scout, and it wasn't the Ocoee, it was the Hiawassee, which is right there beside it, and it's got some rapids and stuff. But I think we camped in the same place I saw you guys camping as Boy Scouts. But you had to build your raft. You could build it out of wood, you could bamboo, planks, boards, logs, whatever. You could use inner tubes underneath it, but no fasteners. Everything had to be tied. So that was the Boy Scout thing. So you've got this contest of all these troops who show up with all their built rafts of 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old boys. Ours won best constructed. It held together.
There you go.
But there would be boys at the end coming down, and you couldn't see the raft. It was just like 4 kids floating on the water. Like And there was wood all over the river, just where rafts had just broken apart all over the place.
I would have paid money to seen that.
I would
It was
not
wild.
have been successful.
It
at
was
all.
wild.
I
And
don't think I'm a Boy
we
Scout
a few
or
years
rafter.
ago, we went. Gosh, this would have been before Morgan and Cameron were married. So we went to the Hiwassee again, and we were in one of those rafts. And you come to it's a much if you don't want all the rapids, the Hiwassee is the chill place.
Okay.
So we were all just kind of in that and we came to one of those deep pools, and I'm like, hey, I'm going to jump out and be awesome and swim around and stuff. And I jumped out, not realizing how cold that water was.
Oh yeah.
And it took my breath. So I'm looking up at the boat. Nobody, of course, you're in a life jacket. Nobody's paying any attention to me. And I am trying to yell at Jamie, help me. But all I can get out is, Jamie. It's just,
Shivering to survive.
I can't make a sound, And finally he looked at me. I'm like, oh, he just grabs me and pulls me in. Man, that water is
That
cold.
water is cold.
Yeah.
Last time we went with some students a couple years back, I remember getting in the water to pull the rafts out, and by the time helping get all the rafts out on the ramp, from wherever the water was to the bottom was completely numb. I was like, nope.
It is frigid.
Yes.
It is. All right, so let's talk about some birthdays
All
as we
right.
turn the corner on a new month. Hey, I think we're officially in fall,
Almost.
Hey, there's pumpkin
Not-
spice.
not the
We're in
actual
fall.
scientific fall, but everybody is back in school now.
Leanne's
It
got
is.
it on the calendar. That's the only reason I know that.
Yes.
It is Georgia though.
Yeah, that's true. It will heat back. I told Shannon on, I think it was Sunday, we were rolling around and driving somewhere, and I said, man, I don't know. That weekend for me is kind of sad because it's kind of like summer's over. I like summer, but hey, I like fall too. Football started. Everybody's
We
jacked
watched that,
about
yep.
that.
There you go.
So we won't bring up any Alabama
No,
people. Sorry,
no,
Russell.
That's
Dick.
where we were this
Tracy
weekend.
Levine. All right, so birthdays: Donna Brown, September the 5th; Tammy Neal, September the 7th; Leslie Shoemake, also September the 5th; Nathan Green and Courtney Jones on the 8th; Savannah Whaley on the 9th, as is Mary Kate Reynolds, and then Oliver Craig. So happy birthday to all of y'all.
Birthday.
And then last week we didn't have any anniversaries officially listed, but we did have anniversaries, and so we got. Hopefully this is the right list, and we'll catch up on some and show some others forthcoming. But Michael and Nicole Williams on August the 22nd, Thomas and Mary Bales on August the 23rd, Jeff and Chrissy Howard on August 27th, Larry and Evelyn Wells, August the 31st. Evelyn Wells always sends us cards. I mean, she just writes tons and tons of cards, and we always get a stick of gum. She always puts a stick of gum in that card. We love getting things from Miss
sweet.
Evelyn. Stephen and Kelly Cochran, August the 31st. Floyd and Lily Pope, September 1st. Jason and Casey Goley on September the 9th.
Awesome.
So happy anniversary to all of y'all.
Anniversary.
We don't have any Liberty Sports Report this week, but this week is the official beginning of fantasy football. So, man, next week we'll have some stuff to talk about in the Liberty A and B fantasy football
There you
leagues.
go.
So we've got a good topic for you today, and that is, and I don't know if it's the right way to put it, but what if my kid hates church, right? So we're talking about the baby always cries in the nursery and won't stay. We're talking about a child is reluctant to go down to the dock. We're talking about that kid that just can't connect at Connect. So, right? So,
There you go.
Yeah, so we're going to bring Melissa in on this. We're going to talk to Jody and Levi and hopefully have some good insights for you as a parent. How do you move that kid who's just reluctant to make it into those ministries? How do you get them in there? And one thing I forgot, let me say this before we go on to the next topic. On the 21st is Back to Church Sunday. So remember to bring a friend, bring some family.
And bring some bacon.
And bring some bacon, yeah. 9:30 will be breakfast. 10:30 will be the worship service. This is a good opportunity to invite people into the church. And we do have a Facebook event out there, so go and share it. A good way just to invite people, just put it out there and let them know you want them to be their Back to Church friend that day. So Good stuff coming up. So let's get right into it. What if your kid hates church? Hopefully we'll help you out with that today on Live at Liberty. So what if your kid hates church, right? It's that child who is just reluctant to go down there, right? So that's the topic we want to bring up today. We've got Levi, who does our Connect Student Ministries, Melissa, who does our Garden Preschool Ministries, and Jody, who does the doc here at Liberty. So we got the experts in the church at the table, right? But, we're talking about that child who cries in the nursery and the kid who is reluctant to go to the children's ministry, the student who has a hard time connecting. So we've got Lily, that's our grandson. He's 6 months old now. And so he's starting to make his way into the nursery, So obviously, our girls, they were raised, dude, you're just in the church, man. They were raised like that. So now Morgan is crossing that bridge to get Evan in the nursery. So, and her first shot at it, compliments to Melissa and her team, was here at Liberty.
There we go.
And she said it went really, really well. And Morgan said, shout outs to Michelle Smith and Tammy Neal. They all did an awesome job that day. So Evan did really good in the nursery that day. So the next week they were back at their church in Marietta, which is called Burnt Hickory, which to me sounds like a barbecue place. But that is
delicious.
That is it's a delicious church. Yeah. But that is the name of their church. So we're going to take Evan to the nursery since we had such a good experience last week. So, Morgan walks up there, and I think every nursery has this. When I was a kid growing up, her name was Mimi Gail. So her name was Gail Bartles, but everybody called her Mimi Gail. And the interesting thing about Mimi Gail in my home church, so I was not only raised in that church, but I became the youth pastor of that church. Mm-hmm. I was on staff with the lady who kept me in the nursery, right? Wow. So Mimi Gail was still on staff when I was on as the youth pastor. So Morgan takes Evan to the nursery, and here comes that Mimi Gail type lady. She's the Melissa, right? Just all the kids love her, man, and she just it's the one that makes all the parents feel good. This is going to be okay. And so that lady told Morgan, said, "Hey, you leave him with us. He's going to be fine. You come back and check on him anytime you want to, right?" So Morgan's obviously a nervous parent. So she hands over Evan, she hands over all the stuff, and in their church, they go to service first, and then they go to life group. So she goes into the service, and obviously, as a new mom, only thing she's thinking about is, is he crying? Is he okay? Is he starving? All these sorts of things. So Cameron, Morgan's husband, looks at her after the service and goes, "Hey, are you going to go check on Evan?" And she goes, "If you get in my way, I'm going to knock you down." Right? So she's that desperate just to lay eyes on him. So the way they have it's a secured area, and there's a little lobby for the children. And she said when she walked in there, that the lady was holding Evan, and there was a little girl in a stroller who was sleeping. And they had Evan's, he has a noise machine that helps him sleep or whatever that Morgan had put in the bag. So she sees that, and you've been around Morgan a lot, so y'all just have to spend time with her. But Morgan is she's very funny. She's very positive. She makes everybody in the room feel good about themselves. Yes. This is our Mo, right? So Morgan looks at Evan and she says, "This is what goes through our mind. My child is so good. He's pretty much a nursery worker now. They brought him out here to help.
He's putting the other kids to sleep."
Oh, yeah. So that's in her mind is he is an all-star.
Same.
Week one, he's pretty much a volunteer, right?
Love it. So
she feels good about it. She goes down to life group, and then she comes up after life group, and another lady is there and to give Evan stuff back. The same Mimi Gill type figure still holding Evan at this point. So this is an hour later now. And the other lady gives Evan stuff back, and she goes, "Woo."
Not what you're looking.
He said he was a crier, right?
So that ministry timeline progressed pretty quick.
So Morgan's mind is still like, "No, man, like he's a volunteer. He's the best kid you've ever had at Burnt Hickory." Right? Yeah, that's what she's thinking. So they're driving home, and Cameron is just like smiling, and in his mind, he knows and Morgan said about 15 minutes later, she realized my kid was not the best one in there. And they he wasn't helping that little girl. The little girl was out there to help Evan to calm down. And the sleep machine wasn't for her, it was for him. And the reason she was having to hold is not because she needed help, but she was holding him because he was the one who was crying. But And so, then Cameron just busts out laughing. He's like, you just now figured this out. He said they don't walk the good kids, right?
So the good kids sit and play by themselves.
Yeah, so we our grandson is that kid at Burn Hickory.
Bless him.
But said all that to say this, he's fine. And he's doing great now. A couple of weeks later, he's doing great in the nursery.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So.
Oh yeah, and so for like new moms like Morgan, what y'all need to realize is that this is perfectly normal.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
perfectly normal. Like they're going to cry, especially when they get from that like 10 months to 2 years old. They're real clingy. They're like figuring things out. That's perfectly normal, like perfectly normal. For our little guys, like I spend a lot of Saturdays praying for these kids, for these mamas, for these dads when they drop them off. Because I know it's a big mountain for little bitty guys. Like, I mean, that separation anxiety is real. And it'll once it takes hold, like sometimes it's a good minute to console them. So
sometimes with mom and dad too, they have separation anxiety.
Sometimes I see that more than the kid had. The kid will be
feel
perfectly
it,
fine, and it's mom and dad.
Yeah.
So, and that's okay too. Like, especially if you're first time parents, like that's okay. I expect that too.
So, what's your advice? What would you tell a parent? Hey, here's how you get over that mountain. What would you say as our
Well,
preschool
first off,
director?
pray for them. Yeah. I mean, we should be praying for our kids anyway, but pray for that. Pray for that separation anxiety. Pray for your own separation anxiety. To that big mountain that seems so big is really just a couple of hours of them getting loved on by us.
By me.
So by me, a lot of it. So and then the next biggest thing that I see for some of our families is just being consistent. Be consistent. Be here. Don't let, because a baby cries, don't let that keep you from church next week. Be consistent. Like if you're going to raise them to love church, unfortunately, sometimes we make our kids go to church. So, but yeah, be consistent. Be consistent in being here. Be consistent in the drop off. Maybe you give that pep talk in the car. We're going to walk in. We're going to see Miss Melissa, and we're going to get your sticker, and we're going to go play, have fun, and mommy will see you or daddy will see you after church. And it's keeping it short and sweet. Hey, a simple I love you, hugs, special handshake, whatever you do, and let them go on into class. But another thing that I noticed too is, and it's okay, especially with new parents, they linger. And that makes it worse. That makes it worse. So, I mean, we're always at the desk. Come and say, hey, will you take a peep in and just see how it's going? And, like, that's one thing is if we have a child that's unconsolable, like, I'll come get you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, I am not going to let that baby cry. Like, I mean, if we have exhausted everything that I know to love a baby back to some smiles and it's not working, then we will. But I don't want to. If we can work that out. So because the preschool is a ministry, it's not childcare.
Right.
For what? That crying child, crying or not, like I'm helping those parents sit in service, get fed, get poured into, and so they can become the best person, spouse, and mom that they can. When we neglect because a baby wants to cry for a few minutes to go in and get them, then we're taking away that ministry aspect of it. So but that, and then just communicate with us. Hey, we've had a rough morning. We might need some extra hugs and snuggles. Maybe they need a special blanket. Bring it. Sure. And then last thing I would tell them is just trust us.
Good.
I mean, most everybody that serves is parents, grandparents, teachers. I've got teachers. This is their life, children. But yeah, just trust us with it.
Everybody back there's vetted.
Everybody is
checked,
background
trained.
checked. We have a good handful of CPR certified people. We've got, I have all the medical contacts and the security guys, a lot of them are EMS, so they're right on hand with us. But yeah, so we don't put anything that would be a hindrance to the ministry when we do any of our child cares.
I love what you said just about that, and I think it's probably pretty much everybody, man. I think as even as a baby, especially, you're establishing that consistency, but also the priorities of family. This is what we do, right?
Yes.
Absolutely.
And I'm always before life group, I'm always standing out there greeting people and whatever. And I can tell you this, man, when those little biddies that are walking and they can kind of go do their own thing, buddy, they give me a little what, and they're headed to the garden.
Yes.
They love
Yes.
it. They know where they're going to Miss Melissa. So
Oh, yes.
your child will be okay, right? You just got to work through that little that first part. So.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the little bit older. We get down to the doc. This is first through fifth grade.
First through fifth, when I've been in ministry for a long time, and so when Mav was a baby, we did the same thing. 6 weeks, boom, here you go. Have a nice. And then when we moved to Florida, he was 5, and I was not on staff. I went into education, and we got that feeling of, oh no, we don't know what's on the other side. We don't know what's going on. We don't know these people. We don't know. And Mav felt that. And it took us a hot second to go, wait a minute. Okay, if we can encourage his courage at school, he's starting a new school. If we can encourage that courage in a new state, can we encourage that same courage at church? Because just like you said, they feel it. And then when they get older, they see it. They'll see your hesitation. And so for us in the doc, our biggest thing is, hey, parents, we are partnering with you to help us break through that fear so that way we can start instilling some faith. But we have got to make that bigger than those 30 seconds of panic. And so we do that by, we want, just like you, I love this because we need connection too. And we need community too. And we need all those things. And that happens when you start encouraging that courage. And so what we do is when they meet those friends upstairs at our welcome desk, especially if they're new, they get the VIP treatment. And we know right off the jump who are our new friends. So we know how to start connecting them, whether it's, hey, you're at the school that our new friend is at, you might like the same sports. We've got all that information. Our welcome team is notifying me and the people downstairs immediately.
That's really
when
good.
we have a new friend who's coming to join us. And it's enough of a stick out with a green lanyard, but not so much where they're like, oh, I'm the awkward duck in a yellow shirt or whatever. And so that really does help. Now, I get it because for us, we get to go into worship first and then they stampede out. And if you're a new friend or if you're an old friend, but that's very intimidating. We want to definitely make sure that we get you hooked up with one of our volunteers that day or another buddy, because it can get very overwhelming, especially if you're a friend not like me who's very loud and very like, let's go, pom-poms, confetti.
Let me hit on that for just a second because I know other churches do this, but some don't. But I just want to kind of give the background of why we do that.
Yeah.
So our kids are in the service with us right up until about the time we're ready to start the sermon. And, man, talking about kids losing that anxiety, when I say, hey, it's time to go to the doc, I mean, they're about 3 steps in before I get the word doc out of my mouth. They're excited to go. But we want the children to learn to worship, not from the children's ministry leader, but from their parents, right? So we don't want any child in this church to go from the garden to the doc through Connect, and then they become an adult and go, I've never been to this church. I think that happens a lot. So we want them in there with us.
One of my favorite aspects of Sunday morning worship is having Zoe in there with me. She always wants me to hold her so she can read now. So she's reading the lyrics on screen and just singing with her and worshiping with her. And I'm not a good singer, and she thank the Lord that she doesn't care how my voice sounds, but just worshiping with her is awesome on Sundays.
Yeah, and then the first Sunday we have them in there the whole time, so they do communion and can ask questions, and it becomes a good witnessing opportunity. But let's go back to that topic. How do you, if a child is reluctant and it's time for go to the doc, and you got a child saying, no, I just want to hang right here.
Absolutely.
How do you?
I want to piggyback on what Melissa said because I think it's so true. The way you approach going is going to be transformative, because if you go in and go, oh, you're right, we're new, or I can tell you've been away from me this week, so you can just stay with me. I hear you, because I have a kid when we go to Birmingham, and I'm like, dude, we're only here like once every couple of months. He can stay with me. I'm not. So hear my heart when I say this, parents. But if Liberty is your home, if Liberty is a place that you want to experience, that means for the entire family. And we are a team who wants to partner your entire family. So we're very intentional. And I feel like if we can, like I said, just encourage that curiosity a little bit. Here's how I talk to Maverick because my kid, we lived in 3 states. He's been the new kid a lot. And let me tell you, I have to encourage myself, because if I'm not in charge, adults make me nervous. But we tell him, we're like, okay, bud, you have a choice. Here's your choice. Can we make our world bigger? How can we make our world bigger? Can we do it by just being 30 seconds of complete faith and trust Jesus that he's got friends for you, and that was a bad word, but just share with them, hey, God's got goodness for you in this. And right now we're letting fear really motivate, and we don't want that. We don't want the devil to win. We don't want you to not be able to grow. And so for us, parents, you can really help by just the way you encourage making their world bigger.
Man, I love that, because one of the things that we talk about as a church a lot is experiencing God. And by talking to Maverick like that, you're showing him God is at work in your life and your situation. And when he meets those friends and he realizes, man, God did have that friend for me.
Yes.
That's powerful. It's good.
And we make connections immediately, like I said. They're not, because here's what I hear from Maverick when he's like, Mommy, I don't like this. Usually what that means is, I'm nervous, I'm uncomfortable, I don't know my surroundings, I don't want to be the new kid, I don't want to be the only one who sticks out like a sore thumb. Let me encourage you, we really try desperately to make connections. We make sure that from the welcome desk to get down to me, I know exactly who is new. I know who needs to have that extra hug. From the second they walk in, I know, okay, if you're a girl, let's hook you up with Miss Megan or Miss, Amber. So we really try to be intentional within those first 30 seconds. And once we can get them involved, once we can connect them, we've got community, but also consistency. If we only get a chance to see you during big church and they only come on Sundays, maybe during service, it's hard to just get that little bit. But man, if they're in life groups and they're there on Wednesdays, that just builds and builds and builds. And it builds for parents too, because then, just like you said, they're focused in life groups. They're focused in big church because they're not trying to corral their angels because they're bored. Well, they're bored because God teaches them in experiential movement. We've got to move. They're movers and doers. So I would just say, if you are curious, or if you're a parent who is still learning about Liberty, come downstairs, come to the dock, come talk to us, experience a worship service with us. Show up 5 minutes early so your kids know that you're going to come get them. Yeah. I think that makes new kids nervous because their parents are getting caught at the welcome desk or caught trying to talk to all the leadership. We're still here. We're not going anywhere. Come down and show your kids, hey, I'm here. You were not forgotten, but also in that line, now you get to meet new parents.
There you go.
Now you get to connect with them. Get your kid, see that they're okay. See that they're fine, because a lot of kids will be like, yeah, that was awful. And it's like, no, 2 seconds ago they were having a blast. They just missed you. They just wanted to be with you.
What'd you learn? Nothing.
That's
not,
I don't know.
Let's learn to ask questions differently. But anyway, just providing connection to build community in consistency is just going to change it. But it really, for our age kids, encourage is just the backbone to getting these babies into the Word and being downstairs with us.
So man, I'm kind of picking up a theme from you guys. So it's all C words. Help me
I
out.
know, right?
What's the list again?
We've got
Consistency is key.
Communication.
Communicate with us.
Mm-hmm.
Connection.
Connection.
And
Courage.
Courage, that's good.
Curiosity.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
Christ. Oh, sorry, I had to. It was there. It was there. It was there. How about we connect
10
in
points.
connections?
we would be an awesome Scrabble team. So, man, on the note of the little kids, I gotta tell y'all this story. I think I've shared it from the pulpit several years ago. But when I was a kid, I looked at church as the interruption to an otherwise great weekend. Mm-hmm. Church was the one thing I was like, oh my goodness. Friday was awesome. You get out of school. Saturday was just the best. You had cartoons and get to ride my bike all day and go fish at the pond and all that kind of stuff. Sunday, we got to go to church.
Reminds you the weekend's
I was that
almost over.
kid.
Yep.
So I one Sunday morning, I thought, I'm going to get out of going to church. And I don't have to go to church if my parents can't find me. And so I had my little church clothes on, and then the side of our yard kind of dropped off to Mr. Kaler's yard, not Larry Kaler, but a guy named Mr. Kaler. And he had a ditch that was like below us. So I thought, I'm going to go hide in the ditch. And Mom and Dad will go to church, and they'll have to leave without me, right? So apparently they knew where I was, and they knew their child very well. So you know what my mom and dad did?
Left.
I said, did they leave?
They got in the car and started driving down the road. Hey, growing up in the 80s was different.
That's what I said.
So, yeah,
Parents show up 5 minutes early.
Yes.
He's like,
Yes.
they ditched me.
So you know what I did? I come running and screaming like they're going to, and they knew what I was going to do, and they knew where I was, and so they stopped the car in the
Well,
street.
you did just the opposite with your girls.
Yeah.
You've left them at church.
That's hilarious.
What, 3 times? So yeah,
Kids,
So
don't
that's,
don't hide in the ditch to get out of church. Just in case that's a question for you. Not a good idea.
I jumped in the car, and I'll tell you this: from then on, I was okay with going to church because I knew, hey, they'll just leave me. So, anyway.
Your parents aren't going to leave you. We're in a new generation.
It was a different day in the 80s. But anyway, so let's get to students because, man, sometimes you do have a student who just maybe some social things going on in their mind, heart. Maybe church is new.
Sure.
But we do see students struggling in those relationships. So how do you approach that?
Man, well, the teen years are awkward as is, even physically. You know, you got hormones going on inside, you got external influence on the outside. You're stuck between, I'm not really a kid anymore, but I'm not quite an adult yet. It's weird. It's awkward.
Yeah, it is.
Same thing with spiritual adolescence, man. Maybe you've got saved at VBS. Maybe you've been in awesome, garden and doc ministries and learned some awesome Bible stories. My kid, she'll raise her hand even if you're not asking the question to tell you the answer from the Bible. You know. But in those teen years, you're kind of making it your own. You're not a kid in kids ministry anymore, and you're not quite in adult ministry, in the church. And so it can be weird. But like Melissa said, with the kids crying, it's normal. It's okay to be awkward, and it's not going to be perfect, but it's part of the journey. Half my student leaders or youth leaders are parents of students, so they get it too. And so I'd say, first off, just know that it's okay. It's okay if it's awkward, and maybe they say they don't like it, but maybe they're trying to communicate something else, and you have to ask questions instead of saying, "Well, you have to go anyway." Maybe say, "Okay, well, what do you not like about it? How are you not connecting? Tell me what's wrong," and listen a little bit, because you might actually hear what the real issue is, and you don't want to use student ministry as punishment either which way. Like, well, you're going now. You can't go hang out with friends. Now you got to go to youth group.
Yeah, boy, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Don't use it as punishment.
Absolutely.
And likewise, if you are in trouble, don't take it away.
There it
if
is,
anything,
yeah.
Lord, they need to be around, some
I'll tell you,
worshiping
man,
off.
in 30 years of ministry, that's one I never understood. And we've had through the years, people's like, yeah, I can't go to church because I'm in trouble. And I'm thinking, well,
Yeah, that's the exact opposite.
what's happening here?
Please don't. Please don't do that. But it can still be tough because we want the same things for our kids. We want what parents want for their kids. We want a safe place. All of our ministry helpers are background checked. We try to do child abuse awareness training, things like that.
Yes.
We don't just put warm bodies with the kids. There's too many horror stories around. So I appreciate the process that we have in place
Yeah. Very
good.
to keep the students and kids and children safe. Because I'm not just a part of the ministry. I've got a kid in the ministry too.
We're invested.
Right. And so we want them to have a safe place. We want them to be have good emotional well-being. We want them to grow spiritually, have a relationship with Jesus, because really that's what it's all about. We don't, like, I don't know if this is a good thing if we're talking about how to get your kids in church, but the goal is not to get the kid in church. The goal is to follow Jesus. The goal is to make disciples.
Very good.
And so getting to church is not the end goal. The reason we want your student in church is so that they can become better disciples and disciple makers.
Yeah.
And that's the point. And that's not going to happen apart from how the Bible tells us to do it. And he says, don't forsake, the gathering together, right? You need peers. You need people to pour into you. Kids need connection.
Yeah.
And like you said, we all need connection, even if it's just with one person.
Yeah.
Nowadays, kids are different now because most students, or at least many students, have maybe one or two really close friends that are always at your house, always raiding the fridge, always, they might call you mom, even if it's not your kid. They have one or two really close friends, and then the entire internet,
Yes.
and the entire social media web. And it's just a different ball game. So it's weird to come together with, 30, 40, 50 other people that are your age and talk about the deep things of life or how's your week going and having normal conversations. It's not the same. Like you said, the 80s were different.
Yeah.
The 2020s are different too.
I miss it.
Yeah.
You ain't lying.
A little bit.
But we don't want parents to do it alone. I love going to ball games and sitting beside parents and, not just shooting the breeze, but, we're cheering for the same person, I love to see their kid win. They love to see their kid win. And I love to get to know the parents too.
And that helps too. If a parent will let you know, hey, they play soccer and they got a game, that kind of helps to
Absolutely.
to get them over the hump too. So when you get to show up. So
it's funny how hard it is to get student schedules. You figured like that would be like an easy thing. Maybe they don't want me coming and cheering, and I won't do it too loud. Maybe.
hey, I raised teenagers. I think sometimes the parents don't know what everything goes. It's just a busy world.
And that's another thing. It's so busy, and it's hard. Sometimes I think parents think, "Man, I've got to do it all on my own," and we don't want you to do it all on your own. I want to help resource parents. It's hard to disciple in this generation, especially if this is my world. This is what I do all the time. I'm reading books. I'm listening to podcasts. I'm going to these leadership conferences and stuff like that. I'm trying to learn because I want to consume as much information about the new generation as I can, because it is so different. Maybe the things that we were doing 20 years ago are not working. And if you ask a lot of parents, like, hey, is what's happening at youth group making long-lasting, effects in your household? I think a lot of parents, if they're honest, would say, no, not really. And so resourcing parents and partnering with parents and helping them to give them tools that they can use at home, because it can't just be an hour on Sunday and an hour on Wednesday. It's not going to stick.
Really
it's got to carry over into the home. And so that's not saying being perfect people, because we're not trying to raise perfect kids, but we're trying to be disciples and raise disciples.
Man, I think that's a really good point to kind of end on and just kind of wrap the conversation up. I think a very important part of this in the home is, for every age, you got to exemplify the same things for your kids.
Yeah.
If you want your children to read the Bible, they need to see you reading the Bible, right? If you want your children to pray, it can't be just for the meal. They got to see that you're really taking the needs of the family to God. So the parent is the model. That's the
100%.
Good or bad, God has ordained it that is the biggest influence in a child's life is the parent, not the ministry leaders. The other thing that I would say is to take the lead. I think sometimes parents back off when their child doesn't like it, they don't fit quickly. I think sometimes the parents become they almost allow their child's, how can I put this? Their child's struggle to become the spiritual leader of the family. That is not the way the Lord would have that to happen. And so you still got to take the lead. This is our priority as a family. This is what we do, right? So you mitigate some things just like you guys did. Getting to know the leaders.
Please.
Man, going to those events, bringing them and connecting. Man, I'm 52 years old, and I can still go down the list. Butch Oliver, Jerry Joe Gwynn, Pat Bishop, Clayton Aker, Bobby Brown, of the people who were the youth leaders when I was a teenager who just deeply impacted my life. And so, man, we've got some great student leaders, great children's leaders, great preschool and children's leaders. I mean, so that connection, but also taking that leadership. And then I think the word that we heard all around the table, more than anything, consistency.
Consistent.
Yeah.
This is our spiritual habit. We worship the Lord through the week at home as a matter of discipleship, but we also we make it a priority on Sunday to gather with the people of God.
Yeah.
Forsake not the assembling of yourselves as the manner of some is, but even more as you see the day approaching, Hebrews chapter 10. And then I would just kind of add this one last thing. Man, you mentioned resources. We do resource parents. We send parents home with stuff all the time. use it, right?
Yeah.
So when we send that stuff home, we don't want it to go in the trash. But man, you reinforce those things. The earlier you begin to do that, the easier it becomes, right? But man, to really begin to reinforce that. And then if you're a new Christian, you're like, hey, man, we got saved and our kid's 14, and this is all new. Let them see the change that's taking place, and they become curious, you know. And here's the thing I would say to every parent, don't be afraid to say I'm sorry.
Right.
Blew it in some things. We weren't doing it the right way. Now we are. This is kind of where we are. And
Because your ministry leaders have to do that too.
And don't be afraid
As
to ask
parents.
for help.
I say
either.
ask questions.
Yeah.
yeah. So, man, that's a good conversation today, and I hope it was helpful to everybody. But I'll let you know we got some great ministry leaders here at Liberty that are here to help you. So each week I try to answer a question for you, and we got a good one about aging and the body and what if sin had never happened. So stay tuned, and I think you'll enjoy this question. But also, as we go forward, Lori, once a month, is going to bring us a story of somebody's testimony in the church. If you've got one of those, maybe it's you, maybe it's somebody else, make sure you get on our app or go to our Liberty Baptist LibertyBaptistChurch.ws website page and look at the Live at Liberty podcast, and you can send that content there. So here we go. Here's our question for the week. I have an interesting question for you this week, but before I answer it, let you know, as always, you can go to the Live at Liberty podcast page on our website, libertybaptistchurch.ws. Suggest content, things to celebrate, stories for Lori, or you can ask a question like I'm going to answer for you today. And so this question is kind of I don't know if it's as much of a question as it is a topic, but just kind of bring it all together. Here's several questions on the topic. If Adam and Eve were created as adults, would people age? We know that Adam and Eve weren't born, so we assume that they were created probably. I imagine them looking like people in their late 20s, early 30s, kind of in the prime of life sort of a thing. So they're created as adults, obviously. And then, so is aging a consequence of the fall? Was childbearing a plan from the beginning? What about the pain in childbearing? And what would our bodies have been like? So, boy, there's a whole lot there. So let's try to break it down very quickly. So the Bible teaches us that in the garden, God put a tree there. He put two trees there that were particularly notable. One was the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. That's the one that got us in trouble. Because, man, not only do we know a world of good, but now we also know a world that has good and evil. But also, God told us that there would be a tree of life, and he pointed that out. And it was not that, the way I read this is not that man had a supernatural body where he would live forever, but it was the nutrients that were in the tree of life that had health benefits to man that would help him to live forever. And what's interesting is if you go to the end of the Bible, you see not only one tree of life that's in the Garden of Eden, but man, you see tree of life lining the cities. You see, or lining the streets. You see the multiplication of the tree of life. And I think that's when God said, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth. He was also implying that you would take along that tree of life and propagate it as a garden and multiply it around the world. So yeah, the way that we sustained life eternally was to have access to the tree of life. Because notice in Genesis chapter 3, one of the last things that it says after man takes of the tree of knowledge, good and evil, and sins against God, that he's banned from his access to the tree of life. And notice what the Bible says here about that. He says, then the Lord God said, behold, man has become like one of us in knowing good and evil. This is Genesis 3:22. It says, now lest he reach out his hand and take also of the tree of life and eat. In other words, he's saying he doesn't want us in sin to have access to this. And here's a really interesting note of grace and gospel in the Bible. He says that he take also the tree of life and eat and live forever. And then there's a little dash. And so it's almost like death becomes an act of grace, that we don't live forever in sin. God doesn't want us to live forever like this. He wants to redeem us. And so he not only cut us off from access to the tree of life so that we couldn't live in sin forever, but he gave us access to salvation through his son so that we could be redeemed and live forever the way he always intended us to live forever. So it says, therefore God sent them out from the Garden of Eden to work the ground from which he was taken. He drove out the man at the east from the Garden of Eden to place the cherubim and the flaming sword, and turned every way to guard the way to the tree of life. So Genesis 3 ends by telling you this is why man is now going to die, because he no longer has access to the tree of life. What's interesting about that is we still try to get access to the tree of life. You walk through a grocery store, you're on social media, everything is advertising supplements and pills and shots and eat this, don't eat that. And man, we are constantly trying to live forever like this. If we could just find that one thing that you could bottle it up. We do know the incredible benefits of nutrients and antioxidants and all that kind of stuff. So man, whatever was in that tree of life was the good stuff. And we just have not been able to get our hands back on it, and we won't until we enter into the new heaven and the new earth. So what about childbearing? Yes. I mean, obviously God told them, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth. That process would come through childbearing of the husband and the wife. And the family was set up there in Genesis chapter 2, God's blueprint for that. Now, he does say in the curse in Genesis chapter 3, to the woman, I will surely multiply your pain in childbearing. In pain you shall bring forth children. So maybe there was some pain there if he says multiply. Doesn't mean that there had to be, but maybe he's just saying, hey, this is going to hurt now. But one of the things he's implying there is that not only is the pain of birthing a child, but also the labor of raising a child. That's what that's really all about. In pain, you shall bring forth children. That's talking about the raising of the children. And the irony of that is we see the tragedy of Genesis chapter 4 where Cain kills Abel, and man, there's a failure in the family right there as sin takes hold in the first home. And so, interesting question on that. So, and then the last part of it is, what would our bodies have been like had we not sinned? I think they'd have been a whole lot more like this. But now, the question was also along that line of aging. Obviously, man does chronologically age, but now we are affected by the radiation from the sun, our lack of nutrients in the soil, the food that we eat, the things we put into our body, and obviously the evil of disease that racks our body is one of the reasons that we die. But if you read the Bible up until Genesis 9 in the flood, one of the things that you notice is that man's ages increase. Man, people are living hundreds of years until we get to Methuselah. And then Methuselah is the great-great-grandfather of Noah. Then we have the flood story. And then look at man's age after the flood. It begins to decrease. And I think the reason for that, I think his name is Leon Morris. He wrote a book I read years ago called The Genesis Flood. But the Bible talks about not only that there was rain in the flood, but that the waters of the deep broke up, so there's water coming out of the earth. So you have this turbulence with the landscape of the earth. But also the Bible talks about there was a firmament, which would have been a water vapor canopy above the earth that I think filtered out a lot of that radioactive activity. If you notice before the flood, it seems like the whole earth was kind of like a tropical rainforest type climate, just very fertile and lush and green. And now that the firmament fell and the flood came, we don't have that barrier of some of those radioactive effects of the sun. And so the radiation from the sun is one of the things that we know ages us. And so after the flood, you see those ages begin to fall. So what would our bodies have been like? I think an indication of this, Isaiah 65:20 talks about in the restoration of things, that if a man dies at 100, he's a young man. And I don't think that's telling you that we'll die even in the new heaven and new earth. But it's just telling you people are going to live a long time. And 100 is going to be a very young man. And I think had we not sinned, a guy 100 years old, 200 years old, 300 years old, 600 years old, as you say in the Bible, I think those guys look like very young men. So I think if those guys walked in here and saw me at 52, they'd probably look at me and go, man, what has happened to you? Well, it's the effects of sin, right? But I think if they'd have walked in, 300-400 years old, they just look like very stout, very healthy people, even at those ages. So interesting questions right there. So where are we left to do with the world that we have? Well, we know we live one life, and we know that our days are numbered. And so every person is called to repent of sin and turn to Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior. If you haven't done that, I would encourage you to do that. In raising children, God hasn't left us alone. Man, we pray for their heart. We pray for their salvation. But we also turn to the wisdom of the Word of God that shows us how to raise a family in a way that pleases the Lord. And so we don't look to the world on how to raise our children. We look to the Word of how to raise our children. And so God has given us a redemptive path even in the world that we are in. So good topic, good set of questions. Check it out online and send us some more. And maybe next week I will answer your question. See you next time on Live at Liberty.